Hello and welcome to Mama Talk Live. I am waiting for my co-host to jump in so we can talk. I hope you mamas are doing awesome this week. Yesterday we celebrated Martin Luther King Day and the kids were off school. I hope everybody's doing well, is having a fantastic week. Oh, there's Molly and Luna. And she's coming on. Sometimes we have to have a little bit of patience with this technology. She's coming on.
Hey.
Molly, how are you doing?
I'm good. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, guys. Facebook was telling me, rotate your phone, rotate it back. And I'm like, I know which way this phone is supposed to be, Facebook. Come on now.
I know. I thought it was my internet connection for some reason not working today.
We are here.
Oh, yes. All you mamas are doing well. Welcome to Mama Talk Live. I'm Valentina Izarra.
And I'm Molly and Luna. And this is where an all-American mama sits down with Latina mamacita to discuss all topics relevant to mommies.
That's right. So grab your latte or your cafecito because it's about to go down. No topic is off limits.
That's right, Mama. We know you wear a million hats, from being the best mother, wife, friend, lover that you could possibly be. Ooh.
Let's talk.
All right. So in today's episode, yes, as Valentina mentioned, we are going to be talking about how to raise kids that are open, respectful, and kind towards all.
Yes, we were contemplating on the Martin Luther King Day that we just celebrated yesterday, and actually reading part of the story to my son, and it dawned on me just how important, because I know we've come a long way since then, since the civil rights movement, but there's so much of this world that's still impregnated, unfortunately, with prejudice and discrimination, that I think as mothers, it's, in my opinion, I think it's like the most important thing we can literally teach our children, is to be kind and respectful and just have this kindness and compassion towards all human beings. I don't think there's any lesson more important as a mother that we could possibly teach our children.
Yeah, this topic seems so obvious to me. Like, duh, of course we want to raise kind, compassionate, respectful children. And the fact, we're celebrating Martin Luther King Day yesterday, an incredible man, a courageous man who stepped out to speak against what was popular for the betterment of equality amongst all. And in a sense, part of me feels like this is a no-brainer, like, obviously. But then the other sense is like, it's still, if you really put it into perspective, it's still so new. I mean, he was assassinated in 1968? I mean, my mother was just born. So we're talking just a generation ago that we were having such segregation in this country.
Yes, and around the world as well, because Mandela, apartheid they didn't get rid of apartheid in South Africa until in the 1990s, and he didn't become president until 94. He spent 27 years in jail, Nelson Mandela, and in a country where there was still so much segregation until the 90s. That's I was a teenager at the end of the 90s, so that's so recent. And to think that there's still a world, but not going too far off. I mean, last week, Molly, you and I were talking about the women's movement and how that's still so relevant in today's day. Mm-hmm. So it's not surprising that this sort of, in my opinion, this sort of thing goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and it absolutely goes hand in hand. Man, woman, black, white, Asian, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're all human, and we should all be kind, respectful, and loving and understanding towards one another, because we are all one.
Yes, and I think it's in a way you're right when you say it should be so it should just be so natural, because I think as children we have all felt, or even as adults, we've all felt at one point in time a sense of maybe not belonging because of something or another. It could be, some people get it because, we're discriminated as women, or we're discriminated because of our weight, or we're discriminated because of our race or our religion, or there's so many different ways that this could pour in to our lives. And I think if we just contemplate on, you know, those moments in our lives where we felt sort of like made to seem like not worthy, you know, for us to feel compassionate towards, you know, towards this cause, and to really making an effort, because as mothers, as women, we have so much, you know, give me the word, like, you know, influence.
Beauty? I don't know where are you going?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, this is an important topic, one that's really near and dear to my heart, because I am a new mama, and I am a new mama, and I hate to even label it or say it, but facts are facts. I'm a mixed race mama. My little baby girl is, it always drives me crazy when people ask me, like, the first thing they see her is they're like, oh, she's so beautiful, and she's got these gorgeous eyes that are deep brown, like you can just get lost in them. And this woman stopped us the other day, and she's like, what is she? And I was like, a beautiful baby, like, duh. And then she goes, no, but what is she mixed with? And I was like, love. And I was getting kind of upset, because I'm like, why does this even have to be a conversation? But the truth of the matter is when my baby is Dominican, she's Black, she's a lot of things, you know, even just on my side of things, people would categorize me as white, but really, if you're asking me what's my race, I have so many races that make up this avatar of me. So it's, yeah. But you know, we're in this world, we're in this culture where people want to put labels, and so I am a mixed race mama, and it's a topic that is just gonna be a part of my life.
Yes. Absolutely. And going back to that, where like you know, the world sort of wants to label us one thing or another. For me, it was sort of it was a big surprise and sort of a shocker, because I remember when I grew up, I was born in Venezuela, I grew up in Europe, and I grew up in the States as well. And in the States, it was the only place where they would ask me to label what I was. And I remember getting kind of upset as a teenager, like, why are they asking me this question? Like, why is it relevant to me taking a test? You know, and the fact that, you know, people want to put you in this category. And I'd always think to myself, well, like, what about this? You know, like, first of all, we're all made up, like you said. And if we all take those, you know, that DNA test that everybody's taking nowadays, if we all take that test, we all realize that we're basically all come from like different places. And I was talking to somebody who actually has done a lot of research into this DNA testing, and he was saying how they've been able to bring us back to like one person and one mother and father in Africa. So in essence, like the Eve and Adam and the Eve. So we ultimately do come from one place, which is pretty cool.
Wow. That'd be interesting to see the genetic makeup of that. I'd like to.
Yes. Yeah, actually, in one of the future episodes, I'm going to tell my friend to give me that information so I can share with you all, because I thought it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, you know, the proof that we all come from that same place, you know, and therefore that idea that we should be unloving and unkind to other people because they're different from us is so, you know, so ridiculous.
Yeah, knowing that we were going to talk about this morning, I was like, you know, so what is it? How do you raise kids that are open and respectful and kind and loving towards all? And you mentioned, you know, as mothers, like, we are our children's first teachers. So I think that it really does stem from ourselves, of being open and willing to just be accepting. And I want to say, Valentina, knowing that we're going to talk about this topic today, I was thinking about my younger self. And I genuinely believe that all children innately are that. They are all just us. What's that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Children do not know any labels until we give those labels to them. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm thinking about for myself as just a young kid. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Midwest. There was like 30 kids in my class, all Caucasian. We had to drive 30 minutes to get a gallon of milk, and then being at the mall, that would be like my only time of being around other races. And I remember specifically, I think we were at Dairy Queen or something, and there were some young African-American boys just like joking around or whatever. And my dad had said, don't you ever marry a Black man. And I remember thinking in that moment, like, like, oh, I didn't like even really see them as different. And then I was also thinking to myself, like, why would that matter? Why would that matter? And then, you know, years later, I did marry a black man, but that wasn't a planned thing. It wasn't like a rebellious thing against my father, but just, I don't think I even had the language that there was a difference between us.
Yeah. There's not a language. It's interesting that you say that, because with my oldest son, Luciano, who's now 9 years old, we, you know, his stepdad and I have never really like used terms of like, you know, pointing out, I guess, the difference of skins or the difference of, in general, differences. And when he was in kindergarten was when he went to kindergarten for the first time, and he came back, and he was talking about some kid, and it was that year in kindergarten was the year that I remember that he heard somebody say something, because up until that point, whenever he, like, I asked him once, oh, what is your friend that you're talking about, what is, you know, which one is he? And he's like, oh, he was trying to describe his friend. And I'm like, well, what does he look like? And he's like, well, he starts thinking, he goes, he has brown skin. So he had never heard me say the word black in like to describe somebody. And that's when I realized, I'm like, you know what? He doesn't know that category because we've never put it in him. And the school that he goes to, actually, like, we're Christians, we're Catholic, but most of the kids that are with him are actually Jewish. And we've had some really good conversations, because I could sense that there was a sort of the kids already by themselves sometimes, you know, because of their parents, start like putting themselves in groups depending on whether they're one thing or another. And I heard, and I overheard Luciano, you know, say something, and I was like, Luciano, you know, you can never discriminate anybody against like religions, against color, it doesn't matter the race, you know, also cultures, what language they speak. Like, we've had this conversation over and over and over. And interestingly enough, I think my proudest moment as a mother came one Halloween. We were in my parents' neighborhood, and her neighborhood is it's a very prominent Hasidic Jewish community. So a lot of the kids there in that neighborhood do not practice Halloween because it goes against their religion. And my son actually doesn't like trick-or-treating all that much. He likes handing out the candy better. So he was handing out the candy, saw a little kid go by without a costume, and he asked him, he goes, hey, why aren't you trick-or-treating? And the little kid, and the other kid turns around to my son, he goes, well, why aren't you trick-or-treating? And my son's like, oh, I don't really like it. Like, I like handing out the candy. And then the other boy goes, well, I'm not allowed to because I'm Jewish. And my son's response was literally, that's okay. I respect your religion. Oh. And to me, that was like the most proud moment as a mother, because I'm like, okay, these things that I'm telling him are sinking in, and he's being open and kind towards other people, and he knows how important that is to me, and therefore he uses it on a daily basis. And that was like 2 years ago, so he was like 7 at that time.
That's so wonderful. I love that we're having this conversation, because knowing, you know, that eventually Ahana is going to be able to speak and ask questions, being able to speak to other mommies like you and seeing how you're navigating it is so encouraging. But what I do want to say so far is what I've learned. Ahana's 17 months old, and we live in, it's a very diverse area. It's Los Angeles. I mean, it's pretty diverse, right? But specifically, there's a lot of Armenians that live in our area, but all races go to this little park that we go to right outside of our house here. Kids that speak different languages, like English isn't their first language, French and Norwegian and Filipino, and just all things. And the one thing that I am learning thus far is that I think in order to raise these beautiful, amazing, open, respectful, and kind children is to actually take their lead. Because absolutely, without any prompting, Ahana, she's the first one to go and offer a hug to a kid and say hello, and there's no language barrier. There is, like, none of them are really speaking, you know, but the language is love.
Yes, and it is through our examples. I really do believe that if we want our kids to be open-minded and kind towards all, it's the way that we behave when we're out in public, how we treat people in public, from the person in the supermarket to the waiters to the people that we interact with. If we try to be inclusive with our friendships, and we have friends that come from different places, that speak different languages, that look different from us, that practice things that are different from us. I think those are key. We learn through example. And I'll add to that, it's not just them seeing us be kind and respectful towards others, but also them knowing that jokes that have anything to do that talk about racism, jokes that are demeaning to women, jokes that are demeaning to any group in particular, they're not welcome in my house. I don't welcome those things in my house because I feel that feeds onto that negative energy, and that it permits, like sort of in like a funny way, which I don't find funny personally, but if you permit those things to enter your house, even in like what people call jokes, it doesn't really send out the message that those things, that labeling and calling other people names, that's unacceptable. So in my house, there's a very strict policy, and it's funny, it's because it's something that I've never really permitted people around me to say jokes about just in general that are like machista jokes, or like that are racist jokes. I don't like it, and I think that it creates just a bad vibe.
That's a powerful point. Yeah, who you surround yourself with and the boundaries that you set with them is also going to be an example for your children. So that's great. And since you mentioned the home, I might add that being really mindful of what you're listening to, the podcasts, the music, the television, and being out in public and conducting yourself in one way, but then going home behind closed doors, and then allowing that sort of media to infiltrate your sacred home, that can also get into the minds of our little ones. And if we're doing the best we can as mindful mamas, and to really help nurture them in a space of being respectful and kind towards all, setting those boundaries as well through media.
Yes, absolutely. And also, watching movies, for example, that talk about specific stories that are inspirational, about people had to overcome certain things because of a way that they were. Like any of these, I can think of one this year that was actually a movie that my son absolutely loved because it's an amazing movie, Hidden Figures.
I was just going to say, please talk about Hidden Figures. That movie is incredible. If you haven't watched it yet, Mama, go watch it.
Yes, it's so and my son was actually, he couldn't stop talking about it for like a week. He was like, those women were so smart, and they were like so dedicated, and they were like, the things I had to go through. And it was like things that it really, put like an impression. It really marked an impression on him. And so movies like that talk about things that have happened that were unfair and unjust in the past, like movies about the Holocaust, and movies about, all of these things that we've been discussing, can be so good because they can be your gate to open that conversation that is so important to have with your children.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so grateful for the, I talk about setting boundaries in the media world, but I'm so grateful for it because it can be such an awesome teaching device for our children and for ourselves as adults. I'm from the middle of nowhere, Midwest, 98.9% Caucasian. I don't have firsthand experience of what it's like to be segregated or to be discriminated against in the realms of race. But through movies and whatnot, I have a more deep understanding and respect for it. And I'm so grateful for it. Oh, and I was just going to say, I'm getting really fired up. I just really love that movie, Hidden Figures. But I was just going to tease that we're really mindful of what we allow Hannah to watch. And we've been introducing her to a lot of really like strong female influence, very persistent, driven women. And I'm really already starting to see that develop in her character. And I'm a little bit like, is it too much? Is it not? But yeah.
No, it's really good though. And it's funny that you say that the whole female, like, strong women, but I also make it a point for my son to watch those movies so that he can see, like, so that he doesn't label it like female movies. That whole thing about like, oh, it's a chick flick, that irritates me, that like labeling something as a chick flick because it's like a female story. So does that mean that anything with like male superheroes is not something that can inspire us? Like, I think absolutely not. I think an inspirational story is an inspirational story that can be an inspirational story for anybody, because the characteristics of that hero or that person that we're aspiring to be could, is courage, is have, is courage, or can have all these characteristics that have nothing to do with religion or race or gender at all.
No, I'm glad that you make that point. It doesn't. It can be inspiring no matter the race, the religion, the sex, the age, everything. I'm glad that you. So wonderful.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off. We had a little bit of a delay there. We want to hear from you mamas out there, how you go about inspiring your children and instilling that love and that kindness towards all, and what you do to let them grow in a world where they treat everybody as equals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really do. I want to hear from you, mamas. This is a conversation that I'm excited to have with you because I'm a new mama and I have my way that I know lots of other options out there. Sorry, we're getting some feedback.
Molly, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you experience, because I know you live in you live in LA, so you're in a city, where there's a lot of diversity. Do you experience ever discrimination because you are a mixed couple?
Yeah. I think earlier on, Javon and I have been together 10 years, and I think that we had a lot more experiences when we lived in the Midwest than we do out in Los Angeles. But yeah, certainly do. I remember specifically dating, and we were downtown Kansas City, and these Black women were just like yelling and hating on me and yelling at Javon and calling him a traitor. Why are you with a white woman? And that was my first experience with that. And I just thought, that just breaks my heart, because you're not seeing, never mind what you think about me as a person, but you're not seeing that it's love and it's beautiful. But recently too with Ahana, this guy, we're walking down the street and pushing her in the stroller, and he's on his cell phone, and he crosses the street to point at me and go, black baby, there's a black baby. And I just was thinking to myself, yeah, duh. Like, can I help you? Like, what is this about? And it just really was like heart-wrenching to me a bit, because he's an older gentleman. And while I wanted to be upset with him and be like, that's not okay, the same side of it was that he grew up in a totally different paradigm than I did. And he was still he had probably experienced the Jim Crow laws, where it was, you used a separate bathroom, you used a separate water fountain, and he just has not allowed himself to really identify what it is he believes in. Where did he pick up those beliefs, and are they really serving him to his highest good? And for that, it makes me so sad, because I feel like he's just completely closed himself off from experiencing the beauty that this world continues to be evolving into, in all of these beautiful mixed marriages and mixed babies. And sorry, yeah. I'm going on a tangent.
I can hear and understand what you're saying, but for some reason it's coming like a couple of seconds later.
Yeah, our internet connection could be better for some reason. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, non-mamas. But anyways, we hope that you guys had some takeaway from this episode of Mama Talk Live. I know you mamas have a lot to say about this topic, as Molly and I do. So please let us know what your thoughts are. Also, like our Facebook page for Mama Talk Live, and make sure to tune in next Tuesday, right? At 1 p.m. Eastern Central Time, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Yes, and during the week, you can follow us over at Mindful Mamas TV, Mamas con Ganas.
Yes, and Molly, tell them about the podcast that you're doing so they can listen to it.
Yeah, so I host a weekly podcast. It's called Once Upon a Mama, and I co-host it with my mom, and it's really fun. talk about motherhood through various stages and ages. So head to iTunes and hit subscribe and listen. Tomorrow will be a brand new episode.
Awesome. Yes. And I also have a podcast. It's a bilingual podcast for Latina mamacitas. And we feature inspiring women, and we talk about topics that will get you motivated to live your life, like we say in Spanish, con muchas ganas, with lots of drive. And you can find it on iTunes at Mamas con Ganas. We'll see you guys next week. Molly, I gotta go because I'm gonna take a walk in the park with my son, with my baby son.
Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, well, I have mounds of laundry to fold, so I'll see you next week, Valentina.
Okay. Bye, Mama.
Bye.